Morning, everybody. So this is a training that we're doing. We're going around to all the branches. We're doing this, training all of our drivers. Like Richard said, we're having an incredible amount of crashes, and with our company. You will not hear me call them accidents. They're not accidents. They are a crash. They're a traffic collision because somebody screwed up. Somebody caused it to happen. There are no such thing as accidents. You're going to hear a tremendous amount of passion from me when I deliver this message. As most of you know, I'm retired from the California Highway Patrol, and I've been to almost 1,000 fatalities. I've seen more blood, guts, gore, and grime than anybody should ever have to, and every fatality has one thing in common, and that is they are 100% preventable. 100% preventable. And when you deal with that loss of life and the emotion, when they're 100% preventable, you have a tremendous amount of passion when I deliver this message. To give you a little background on myself, grew up in San Diego. My father and I have a hobby. We restore vintage Mustangs. I've been racing since I was 15 years old. I have a 65 Shelby GT350 that I've been sliding around the track. And not only am I a high-performance driver, but I'm also a high-performance driving instructor. Not only was I on the Highway Patrol and certified our officers on their annual driving certifications, and the California Highway Patrol, by the way, has the best driving school in the world. I'm also a high-performance driving instructor for Ford Motor Company, and I travel around the country and I teach people like you how to race on the track. So why do I tell you all this? I tell you this because I have a mechanical background of understanding the mechanics of a vehicle. I have the knowledge, expertise, and wisdom when it comes to high-performance driving and the dynamics of the vehicle. And I have the passion of being to so many fatalities and seeing blood, guts, gore, and grime. So you're going to hear that from me today. I'm going to make you two promises. If you give me your undivided attention for the next few minutes, I promise and guarantee you two things. One, you will leave here a much better person and a much better driver than when you walked in. I have taught this to literally thousands of people throughout my career and my time here at 5-Star. And I have never had anybody come up to me and say, you know what, Brian, this was a complete waste of time. Most of the stuff I'm going to share with you, you already know, but it's from a perspective and knowledge where you're able to put it together and understand the why behind the ask. All right? So this next slide just is a little bit about my career. This picture right here, off to the left right here, that was my first day on the job, 22 years old. That was my last day on the job in the middle. This was the first car I built in the black and white. That's my Mach 1 up there, the maroon one I still have. This is a 65 Shelby that my first time taking my son out on the racetrack. This was my Mustang patrol car. For over half of my career, I was a spokesperson for the department. And I've done many high-profile cases, including having my own show on Fox and ABC called Know the Road. I have over 500 episodes. If you Google the YouTube stuff, there's over 500 episodes of that. I've had the honor and privilege of being in charge of dignitary protection for 4.5 years of my career. I've met every president going back to Bush Sr. The Donald's the only one that took a picture with me, though. There's some other dignitaries, congressmen, senators. You might recognize Miss Nancy there in the corner. I had to protect her for a week in downtown Los Angeles. Extremely stressful. Met movie stars when I had an awesome career. And it just got to a point where I was paying to go to work because I had maxed out my pension. And it was time to go. But I loved every day of it. Woke up every morning and say, you know what? I get to go to work today. So it was an awesome career. And I thank you for the opportunity that 5-Star's given me to share my passion, my knowledge, my expertise, and high performance driving and driver safety. All right. So I came up with a slogan called 5 to Drive when I started teaching at corporations. I'm going to give you 5 rules. You do these 5 rules. I promise and guarantee you absolutely will never be in a crash at your fault. And not only will you never be in a crash at your fault, you'll be able to perceive and predict 9 out of 10 crashes you would have been involved in that aren't even your fault, which can be equally as important, especially in a corporate setting and a company like 5-Star. All right, the first rule is going to be speed. Second rule is back off. Third rule, maximize your elbow space. Fourth rule is look as far down the road as you can possibly see. And the fifth rule is backing. Rule number 1, why is speed so important? Why is it the number 1 violation that law enforcement enforces? Why is it absolutely imperative that you obey these speed laws? Why is it so important? Guys, it has nothing to do with your ability to drive. Has nothing to do with how awesome of a car you have. Has everything to do with your physical inability to stop. Now, for all those of us who aren't physics majors, let me bring this down a little bit. It has to do with mass, acceleration, and velocity. They're very complex equations, but it is essentially weight times speed squared. Your force goes up exponentially with how fast you are going. Your force goes up exponentially with how fast you are going. To give you a for instance, if you are doing 55 miles per hour under perfect circumstances, you're going down the roadway at 55 miles per hour, I'm giving you every benefit of the doubt. There's no distractions, nothing. And you come up to an imaginary painted football field. Let's say this table right here is a football field. And the exact precise instant you cross that goal line, you perceive an object on the 40-yard line. No problem. You're only doing 55, but it takes you 3/4 of a second to perceive, 3/4 of a second to react, for a total of 1.5 seconds. Folks, you are now on that 40-yard line when that object enters the front of your vehicle. You now have your foot on your brake through the fan of your engine trying to stop as you come to a sliding, screeching stop. Congratulations, touchdown, you just scored. Under perfect situation, under perfect scenario with no distractions, it takes you 100 yards minimum to come to a stop with only doing 55 miles per hour. But to give you an example of how weight times speed squared equals force, your forward momentum can only be converted into one thing, and that's called kinetic energy. That is the heat in your brakes. Did you know that if this is 0, you accelerate all the way up to 70 miles an hour, and you see somebody getting on the freeway, maybe a line of trucks, and you want to get around them, so you punch it and you go up to 90. You hit your brake and go from 90 back to 70. The amount of heat that it takes to slow your vehicle from 90 back to 70 is the same amount of heat that it takes to stop your vehicle all the way back to 0, because weight times speed squared equals force. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Do you understand? Has nothing to do with your ability to drive. It has everything to do with your physical inability to stop. This is why speed is absolutely crucial. Now, our friends down in Australia made an awesome video. Oh, first of all, Mikey, raise your hand. He made this PowerPoint for me. He made it really, really pretty. So thank you very much, Mikey. All right. So I said, this is what I need. This is what I want. He made it all pretty. All right. So they did kilometers per hour. Okay. When you watch this video, 5 kilometers equals 3 miles per hour. Okay. Keep that in mind when you watch this.
What you're about to see will change your mind about speeding. 2 identical cars, one travelling at 60, the other at 65. A sudden change in the road ahead, and both drivers first react, and then, a moment later, they brake. And things start to get interesting. Down here, the difference is extraordinary. In the last 5 metres of braking, you wipe off half your speed. So this car is still doing 32 k's when it hits. This one also hits, but only at 5 k's. So no matter how good a driver you are, 5 k's difference up there makes 27 k's difference down here.
Okay, weight times speed squared equals force. That was 3 miles per hour difference. 3 miles per hour, that was it. All right, but let's face it, why do we speed? We speed because we're in a hurry, we want to save time. Would you be shocked and amazed if I told you the faster you go, the less time you save? Watch this.
STEM Bite. For this STEM Bite, I'd like to talk about speeding. When I'm driving down the road, especially on the highway, I tend to want to go a little bit faster than what the speed limit says. If the speed limit's 25, I like to go 30. I figure, what cop's gonna pull me over for going 5 over the speed limit? But the more I learned about math, the more I realize that speeding really just doesn't make sense. The difference between going 70 and 75 makes such a small difference in the time that you actually arrive that it really doesn't even justify the risk. The trick is this: instead of thinking about how many miles you're going in each hour, miles per hour, most of us tend to think about how much time it takes to get a certain distance. Instead of printing our speedometers with a number of miles per hour, we should show you how much time it would take to go 1 mile at that speed. I mean, that's what we really care about, right? Is how fast can I get there? If we did that, we'd see something surprising. We'd see that the difference between going 40 miles an hour and 60 miles an hour means you save 30 whole seconds. But going up to 80 miles an hour only saves you 15 seconds. In fact, the difference between 70 and 75 miles per hour only saves you 3 seconds over an entire minute. For most of our driving, when we're only driving 10 or 15 minutes, the gain we get by speeding is so small that it really doesn't justify the risk. The relationship between the speed you go and the time it takes you to get somewhere is what we call an inverse relationship. It looks kind of like this. It's just another way to show that the faster you go, the less that speeding helps you. It really doesn't save you any time.
Okay, so let me wrap this up for you. The faster you go, your consequences go up exponentially, but yet the less time you save. The faster you go, your consequences go up exponentially because weight times speed squared equals force, but the less time you save. I'm very proud to tell you that since we installed our Azuga cameras, speeding's our #1 alert. And Azuga thought that our information was bad. They had to run it a few different times, and they realized that no, we have a 70.4% reduction in our speeding violations by having our cameras in our car. So that's working. All right? Are we good for speed? Do you understand? It doesn't pay, and yet it costs you dearly with the faster you go. Got it? Okay. Rule number 2 is following distance. Why is the following distance such an issue? We've heard rules of 2 seconds, 3 seconds, so on and so forth. Let me tell you what the vehicle code says. The vehicle code says this: you shall drive at a speed and a distance where you can perceive and react to anything that presents itself in front of you. I already showed you the example of the painted football field with the object on the 40-yard line, where at 55, you're just now touching the brake pedal as that object's entering the front of your car. You shall drive at a speed and a distance where you can perceive and react to anything that presents itself in front of you. So what are your factors? How fast am I going? How much do I weigh? What's my coefficient of friction on the roadway? Do I have a dry pavement? Do I have a wet pavement? Do I have an icy pavement? Am I loaded? Am I unloaded? How hot are my brakes? Who's the only person in the world who knows that? You as the driver. And that's something as you as a driver have to continually be evaluating on your following distance. You have to continuously be asking yourself, am I following at a speed and a distance where I can perceive and react to anything that presents itself in front of me? And that is your following distance. This is absolutely imperative for our route drivers driving around in their trucks. We hit this hard when we do our meetings and our presentations at our branches, because I can't tell you how many rear-end collisions we have where guys are driving too close to the vehicle in front of them. They're not able to stop because the vehicle in front of them has a shorter stopping distance than they do. All right? I want you to watch this next video, okay? Maybe. Watch how these objects entered the roadway in front of you. I want you to ask yourself, am I following at the speed and the distance where I can perceive and react? Predictable is preventable. Predictable is preventable. Some of those are non-predictable, and that's why it's so important to have the cameras so we can exonerate our drivers. Okay? But predictable is preventable. You have to continually be asking yourself, am I following a speed distance where I can perceive or react to anything that presents itself in front of me? Are we good for following distance? We good? Okay. The next one is lateral space cushion. What is that? That's a cushion of space on the side of your vehicle. When you're going down the road, are you going to be hugging the curbs, gutters, sidewalks, parked cars, pedestrians? No, you're going to be hugging that center line. A car comes the other direction, move over, split the difference. Guys, this is absolutely imperative for our merchandisers when they're driving their box vans, because they're driving these vehicles that are over width. And we just had another one 2 weeks ago where they took each other's mirrors off of the cars. Okay? Maximize your lateral space cushion. I cannot tell you how important that is, because by you being able to create that extra cushion of space along the side of your vehicle, you're able to avoid potential hazards on the side, all right? Okay. This next video I'm going to show you is a driver who did not do that. And when you watch this video, I want to ask yourself a few questions. Number one, do I really need to pass this box truck? Number two, if I pass him, am I passing in a safe location where I'm up against a concrete wall with absolutely no recovery zone? Number three, when is it that I enter into his blind spot? Number four, I want you to pay attention to this relatively minor collision that occurs and the forces that are exhibited upon the driver's body as he gets tossed around inside the cab of this truck. Had he not been seatbelted, he would have ended up in the back of the sleeper with his partner. And the last thing I want you to pay attention to is doing 55, 60 miles an hour, how long it actually takes him to come to a stop. All right? Lateral space cushion. The next rule is rule number 4, and it is the single most important thing I'm going to tell you. If you don't listen to anything else I say this morning, please listen to this. I told you the California Highway Patrol has the best driving school in the world. You will fail our driving school if you don't get this through your head. It is something that is unnatural. It's something you have to force yourself to do. We call it HVH. It stands for High Visual Horizon. You are looking as far down the road as you can possibly see. And folks, when you force yourself to do that, you will be flabbergasted and amazed, because you will not only be able to perceive, you'll be able to predict what the knuckleheads in front of you are doing. Okay? It is the single most important thing you can do. I know we're in the South. Besides Josh and I, is there any other NASCAR fans in here? Okay, see, okay. NASCAR, if you ever sat in a NASCAR, or a race car for that in general, you'll notice that you are about this far up off the ground. Your hind end's about this far. Why? They want to lower center of gravity, but most importantly, it forces you to maintain a high visual horizon across that dash. It forces you to look as far down that racetrack as possible so that you can perceive and predict what's going to happen in front of you. Guys, I cannot overemphasize how important this is. The most important thing you do as a driver, look as far down the road as you can possibly see. All right, this next video I'm going to show is just going down the road. And I want you to practice what I'm talking about. I want you looking as far down the road as you can see. All the way down, all the way through the turns so you can perceive and predict. Your peripheral vision will pick up everything else. Okay, are we good for high visual horizon? Look as far down the road as you can possibly see. In that type of situation, that was Mount Rainier right there. It's a beautiful drive, and a lot of times, oh, well, you're looking at this and you're looking at that, and you're not looking as far down the road as you can possibly see, okay? All right, any questions on HVH? The single most important thing you can do? Okay, rule number 5 is backing. Anybody want to take a guess how many children are behind that mid-size SUV, that Ford Explorer? I'll save you. There's 29 of them. Not one of those children are visible from the driver's position. Even looking over your right shoulder, not one of those children you can see. Guys, in my career, I have been to 4 fatalities. And I cannot explain to you how gut-wrenching it is when a parent has ran over their own child in their driveway. Do not ever, 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 ever back out of where you are without visually getting behind your vehicle physically and checking behind you first. Do not ever back your vehicle without physically getting behind you and checking first. Now, fortunately, most of us drive when we're driving professionally, we don't have children around us. But that may not be the case when you go home. Guys, I cannot tell you how gut-wrenching this is when a collision like that happens with a young individual. I will tell you, at 5-star, we have this happen all the time. Not with children, but with objects. Now, this may surprise you. I'm not a fan of backup cameras. I have investigated dozens of collisions where people have relied on their cameras and they've hit an object and said, well, it didn't show on my camera, it's not my fault. Oh, my sensor didn't go off, it's not my fault. No, it is your fault. It absolutely is your fault. You are responsible for that vehicle regardless if you're relying on your camera or not. The cameras give you a false sense of security. That's Brian's opinion. Okay? Even if you have a backup camera, I want you to get out and physically check behind you before you back up. Do not rely on it. All right? Now, what's the best thing to do? What I teach our drivers to do, and what I've taught all the professional drivers I've taught, and what I'm going to tell you is the best practice is to always back into wherever you're parked. That's the best practice. When you pull in, visually clear, it's clear, and back in. That way, when you leave, you can pull straight out. Law enforcement does that every single time. Why? Because if we have to leave in an expeditious manner, we can leave. We don't have to worry about backing up and jockeying for position. We can just pull straight out. And you can do the same thing. Okay? Try to do that as much as possible. I know there's some times where it may not work. You may have to unload something out of your trunk. You need to pull in or whatever, and that's fine. Just do not ever back out of where you are without physically getting out and checking behind you first. All right. Those 5 rules. Slow down, back off, maximize your elbow space, look as far down the road as you can possibly see, and always check behind you before you back. You will absolutely never be in a crash that's your fault. If you have been in a crash that's your fault, it's because you violated one of those 5 rules, or multiple of the 5 rules. Sometimes it's speed and following too close, or a mixture of those 5 rules. Okay? Not only will you never be in a crash that's your fault, you'll be able to perceive and predict 9 out of 10 crashes you would have been involved in that aren't your fault. All right? Okay, any questions on 5 rules? Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is seatbelts and their importance. I have absolutely zero tolerance for this, and I am extremely passionate about seatbelts. This is one of our Azuga alerts that we monitor for our drivers. When you are seated inside your vehicle, you shall have your seatbelt on. We are the best in the world. We have a 97% compliance rating for seatbelts. 97 out of 100 people going down the road are properly restrained. But with that in mind, over half of our fatalities involve improperly restrained occupants. 3% of our people cause 50% of our deaths. 3% of our people cause 50% of our deaths. So why is that? How does 3% of our people cause 50% of our deaths? Well, let me explain to you how that is. In every crash, there's 3 collisions. The first collision is your vehicle hitting the object. The second collision is your body hitting the inside of the car. The third collision is what kills you. And that's when your internal organs slam against your skeletal structure. On the highway patrol, we have a rule. It's called the 35 mile per hour rule. I don't care how big and bad and tough you think you might be. No human body can withstand a sudden, instantaneous 35 mile per hour or greater differentiation of speed. Because what happens at 35 miles per hour? On that third collision, when your internal organs go flying forward, your heart goes forward, your aorta does not. And it goes right off the top of your heart. And within 3 to 5 minutes, you bleed to death internally. The most famous crash where this happened, some of you are not old enough to remember this. A lot of us are. It happened in 1997 with Princess Diana. Princess Diana and Jodie Fayed running from the paparazzi in Paris, France. Their driver ran out of talent when he hit a patch of water, slid broadside into a bridge abutment, and tacoed the Mercedes around the bridge abutment. Diana was alert and oriented upon arrival of emergency crews in the right rear passenger seat, complaining of chest pain. 3 to 5 minutes later, unconscious, unresponsive, full cardiac arrest, CPR in progress all the way to the hospital. And when she got to the hospital, what happened? They pronounced her. Early that morning in Paris, that trauma surgeon came out to hundreds of cameras and said, had Diana been cracked open on the operating table at the exact precise moment of that collision, he would not have been able to sew her up before she bled to death. Guys, it has nothing to do with your ability to drive, has everything to do with your physical inability to stop. So how does this happen? I told you about the 3 collisions. That airbag, that SRS on your steering wheel and on your dash stands for Supplementary Restraint System. It shall be used in conjunction with a properly worn seatbelt across your hips, across your chest. The purpose of the seatbelt is to hold you inside that vehicle and to hold you firm for that airbag to deploy. That airbag deploys at 200 miles per hour. If you do not have that seatbelt on it correctly, across your hips, across your chest, not under your arm, not behind your back, not on at all, if you do not have it on correctly, when those forces are exhibited upon your body, which are phenomenal, they're 1 story for every 10 miles per hour, when those forces are exhibited upon your body, you are on top of that steering wheel when the airbag deploys. How fast? 200 miles per hour. The very mechanism that's designed to save your life, to dissipate your internal injuries beneath that 35 mile per hour threshold, will take your life because you are on top of that airbag when it deploys. How fast? Now, I oftentimes get asked, well, Brian, I'm going to an airport. I got 8 stops. And there's only 5 mile per hour speed limit. You're seriously telling me I got to warm it? Yes, I'm telling you, you have to wear your seatbelt because those airbags have sensors in the front of your vehicle. All they have to do is have a 15 mile per hour or greater differentiation of speed. So if you're doing 5, all something has to do is hit you at 10 and that airbag deploys. Well, what if I'm just sitting in my vehicle? Yes. You're sitting in your vehicle, all somebody has to hit you is in the front doing 15 or miles per hour and that airbag's going to deploy. How fast? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? You understand? I have no tolerance for this. If I'm chasing a high speed, let's say I got 120 mile an hour speed and I got to do 145 to catch them. And I'm coming up and I see you and you don't have your seatbelt on, guess what? Guess who's going to get stopped? You are. And I'm going to pull out my pen. I'm going to say, press hard. There's 4 copies. I have no tolerance for this. 100% preventable. You are a 3%er that causes 50% of our deaths. Okay? Now, this next video I'm going to show shows how easy it is to deploy the airbag. All right? This guy's in a road rage. He causes no damage to his vehicle. He's tapping the bumper of the car in front of him. It's down in Australia. But pay attention to how easy the airbag deploys.
Oh, boom, there it is. That is so satisfying to watch. Do you hate dual cab use that tailgate everybody? Well, this guy just got pretty much what he deserved. He was tailgating a guy in a Jaguar SUV, got a little bit too close, gave him what looks like the lightest tap, and then the airbags exploded. This footage was posted to Dashcam Owners Australia, and it shows a dual cab Ford Ranger doing what they do best, which is tailgating other people before it all goes horribly wrong. Let me know what you think. Who is at fault here?
All right, the next video I'm going to show you is a series of 3 videos. The first one is a family that's sitting in the back seat of what I think is probably an Uber. The dad is in the right rear seating location. He is unrestrained. They get a broadside collision of less than 20 miles per hour. Weight times speed squared equals force. No intrusion into the passenger compartment, not even any glass breaking. And watch what happens to the unrestrained dad, how he crushes his family as he's thrown across the car. Video number 2, same scenario. 2 ladies sitting in the back of their car. The one in the right rear, not restrained. They get broadsided less than 20 miles per hour. Again, no intrusion, no glass breaking. And watch how she smashes her friend into her side of the car. The last one is the guy who falls asleep, drifts off the roadway, rolls his car, comes 6 inches from dying because his head gets popped out the rear window next to the B-pillar. He doesn't die though.
बस ठीक है,
नहीं गया।
बिल्कुल ठीक है।
ओए गॉड।
क्या हुआ? Are you okay?
No, no. Hi. Hi. No.
Okay, are we good for seatbelts? No questions, no exceptions. Even if you have a family member who doesn't want to wear a seatbelt, are you safe in that car? No, everybody needs to be properly restrained, okay? And that goes for objects too. We talked to our merchandisers about not piling stuff up inside their vehicle, because if something happens, they can get smashed by the objects inside their vehicle as well, okay? Those are called projectiles. Okay, for those of you who are hauling around your family, make sure all your projectiles in your SUV are underneath that cargo net in the back with the 4 anchors in the back. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? Okay, because flying groceries can do the same thing. I've been to 2 collisions where children have been killed by projectiles that were in the back of the SUV that the parents did not have restrained. One of them was a stroller. Okay, we good for seatbelts? All right, no tolerance. Okay, the next alert that we have, and the thing that we need to talk about, is distracted driving. This is huge. This is a factor in 80% of our crashes, and 90% of the time it's our cell phones. We all do it. Let me explain to you the importance of why we shall not do this. Okay? Driving is multitasking in and of itself. It requires 100% of your attention. When you are actively engaged in conversation, you are driving subconsciously, because now your primary mental obligation is to your conversation. You're driving subconsciously. How many of us have had the boss say, hey, come see me first thing in the morning. I want to talk to you about something. And that's all they say. And you're on your way into work. Okay, you're driving to work. Okay, what do they want to talk to me about? What am I going to say? What's my answer going to be? What direction I want this to go? What are the ramifications? What's the implications? That you're going through your mind. And you pull in the parking lot, and you get out of your car, and you go, I don't remember driving here. Am I the only one that did that? No? Right? Why? Because you're driving subconsciously. Your primary mental obligation is to your conversation. Now notice I didn't say anything about holding a phone up to your head. I didn't say anything about talking to a passenger. Can you have a conversation with yourself? Yes. It's the simple act of being engaged in conversation. Our policies for our company say that you have to abide by state law. State law says that you have to have hands-free devices. But what I just explained to you, does having a hands-free device make a bit of difference? It's an act of being engaged in conversation. Now, distracted driving could be eating, drinking, talking, and those are all distractions. You know, in Europe, by the way, it's illegal to eat or drink while you drive. Do you know that? Just FYI, BTW. All right? Distracted driving is a factor in 80% of our crashes, and 90% of the time, it's our cell phones. Yes, Rudy?
What are your thoughts on the cell phone you said, all vehicle questions?
Right. It's a distraction, yes. But the law says as long as you do the touch and your hands free, it's legal. I'm just telling you the act of being engaged in conversation or being distracted is a factor in 80% of all crashes. Okay? Now, I know some of you have seen the tests that I've had everybody do, and you're all going to get to participate, and I'm going to show you how bad you stink. Okay? And if you have an obstinate teenager or a college kid who thinks that they're invincible and they think that they can drive totally fine and they can't be intoxicated and all this stuff, I want you to do this test with them, okay? The first test we're going to do is we're going to all say our ABCs, A through K, and then we're going to count 1 to 11. We all know our ABCs and we all know how to count. Okay, so immediately after saying our ABCs, we're going to, from A to K, we're going to count 1 to 11. Everybody's going to do it out loud. We're all going to do it together. Okay, you ready? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, now we're going to put them together. I want you to put them together with me. Okay, you ready? A1, B2, C3. What happened? What happened? Okay, you guys did pretty good. F6, usually it's about C or D that they lose. Okay, you guys did pretty good. Okay, now that's the mental aspect of it. Now I'm going to show you the physical aspect of it. Okay, take your fingers, point them together like this. Okay, I want you to take your left hand and make a big circle going away from you. Big circle going away from you. Okay, stop. Okay, take your right hand, make a big circle coming towards you. Okay, stop. Okay, now do those two circles in those directions at the same time. You can't. You can do them, you just can't do them in the opposite directions. Okay? Now I just showed you how physically, how we can't do distractions. I just showed you how you can't do more than one thing at the same time physically. Now, imagine doing that and being mentally disengaged, driving subconsciously, doing your A1, B2, C3 while you're trying to do your opposite circles. You can't do it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Okay? When driving takes 100% of your attention, and it should be of your foremost concentration. All right? Okay, I'm going to show you this video that I show all of our drivers. This is a case that we had up in Minnesota. It's a tragedy. Professional driver, just like our drivers in our company. He's driving down the highway. He's not speeding. He's doing 63, speed limit 65. Okay? He gets a text message from his fiancée who he's about to marry in just a few weeks. His fiancée gives him wonderful news and tells him that they just accepted their offer for their first house. He picks up his phone, completely elated, telling his fiancée how much he loves her, how much he's looking forward to spending the rest of his life with her, and how he is absolutely thrilled to death that they have their first house. Okay? And they're interviewing him from prison.
I play that moment in my head multiple times a day. There wasn't anything I could do. I was out of control. From the time that I looked down at my phone to the time that I looked up, 8 seconds had passed. I never realized how far you travel in 8 seconds.
We see it too often, and Tuesday was another example where someone's killed on our roads for no reason other than someone else's poor choice to make that phone more important than driving. We shouldn't need a law to tell us to pay attention while driving. We should just be paying attention while driving because we know it's the right thing to do. And had that happened on Tuesday afternoon, there's no doubt in my mind that Mr. Bursick would have been home.
He was stopped at a stoplight, and I hit him when I was going 63 miles an hour, and hit so hard that my truck went on top of his car. And I couldn't steer. The brakes didn't do anything. I couldn't do anything.
I've heard the reports that the fire department took hours to get him extracted from the vehicle. That is a haunting image in my mind that I think about all the time.
We'll never get to see our dad again. And it's all because of the 8 seconds that Sam decided to look at his phone.
So I have this, we're going to put this PowerPoint up on SharePoint. And I told all the managers in our branches, if one of your individuals gets an Azoog alert for distracted driving, I want them to watch all 9 minutes of this video. It's very well done. I obviously am not showing you all of it, but I challenge you if you watch it and not cry. It's extremely emotional, and it will change your mind and your perspective about distracted driving and the importance of paying attention at all times. Okay, are we good? All right. The next thing I'm going to talk to you about is something that's very, very bad that sometimes happens to good people. And I do not want you to think that I was told, hey, man, we have a problem and we need to address this in this group right now. No, that is absolutely not the case. Everybody gets this talk. Guys, DUI is a very bad thing that sometimes happens to good people. How do good people, even if you don't drink? So don't tune me out if you don't drink, because this applies to you as well, and I'll explain to you how and why. Okay? How is this a very bad thing that sometimes happens to good people? How do good people find themselves in this very bad situation? I'll give you a for instance. All right? Let's pick your favorite sports team. Oh, by the way, I am very impressed with how you all are into college football, by the way. You know, that's not a West Coast thing at all. And by the way, out there we say you guys say all y'all. And I found out that y'all plural is all y'all. And I also found out, very importantly, that bless your heart is not a compliment. Okay? So anyways, it's a very, very important cultural things that I've discovered. But anyways, okay, how is this a very bad thing that happens to good people? Let's take your favorite sports team, okay? Whoever it might be. And let's say your team is playing in the big game. And you go over to a friend's house who shares your passion for that team. And your team is just playing lights out, dominating, and you are ecstatic. You couldn't be happier. And you decide to tie one on. That means drink a lot. Okay? Let's say you decide to tie one on. But you are a professional driver. You know that the livelihood of your family, the roof over their head, clothes on their back, food on their table depends on your ability to drive. You would never, ever, ever drink and drive. So you make arrangements to get a ride home, whether it be with your significant other, Uber, Lyft, whatever. You have a designated driver. You would never drink and drive. You go home, take a shower, go to bed, wake up at dark:30, get ready. You're on your way into work the next morning. You think everything is fine. You are not. You think you're driving just fine. You are not. You look in your rearview mirror. You see a Christmas tree in your rearview mirror. That's my lights. You think you pull straight over. You don't. You wait about a quarter of a mile because everything's delayed. You think you stop on the shoulder. You don't. You're kind of cattywampus. I walk up. I introduce myself. I explain the reason for the stop. You profusely apologize, saying, hey, I was up late watching the game last night. And I probably was too. And we probably will talk about the game. And while we're talking, I say, you know, I detect the odor of an alcoholic beverage emitting from inside your vehicle. Have you had anything to drink? Oh, are you kidding me? I work for 5-Star. There's no way I would ever drink and drive. I'm a professional driver. My livelihood depends. I would never take that chance. Do I say have a nice day? Do I have a duty and obligation to make sure you're okay to drive? Yeah. Out of the car you come. I ask you a whole series of questions, have you do a whole series of tests, and I determine based on the totality of the circumstances whether or not you're under the influence. And I honestly and truly hope you are not. I honestly and truly hope that you were just tired, and I'm just now having to wake you up a little bit. But let's say I determine that you are under the influence. You're still deuce. Deuce means drunk. You're still deuce from the night before. Guys, your liver can only process 0.02 an hour. What is 0.02? 0.02 is 1 12-ounce Coors Light, colored water. Okay? 1 12-ounce Coors Light. That is all you can process every hour. But we don't want to do the 12-ounce. We want to do the 40-ounce draft because the 40-ounce comes in a frozen mug and it tastes better. And that's a scientific fact, by the way. Okay? You want to do the 40, but you now just drank 3.5, 4 of those. Okay? Or let's say, hey, we don't want to deal with the Coors Light. That's colored water. We want to go straight to the IPAs. Folks, IPA, there's some IPAs that have, in one beer has enough alcohol as an entire 6-pack of Coors Light. But let's say, hey, there's too many empty calories in the beer. We're going to go straight to the hard stuff. Beer takes too long. That bartender's going to pour you stiff because they want you to give them a good tip. What is 0.02 in hard alcohol? It is 1 shot. And the average drink is more than that. It's probably between 1 to 2 shots. And if you order a double, then it's 2 to 3 shots. 0.02 an hour, that's all. Well, let's say you and your spouse goes out for your anniversary. And you order a bottle of red wine. There's 4 glasses. Those of you that drink wine, you know. Of those of you who don't know, that there's 4 glasses in the bottle of wine. What is 0.02? 0.02 of red wine is 4 ounces. And a good waiter will never let your wine glass get empty. He'll constantly be topping you off. Okay? You are done. Done. Very bad thing that sometimes happens to good people. Good people find themselves in this bad situation. I have arrested hundreds of drunk drivers, done thousands of evaluations. I have yet to arrest a drunk driver who said, you know what? I'm hammered, I'm smashed, I shouldn't have been driving. No, what do they say? Ossifer, why are you arresting me? I swear to drunk, I'm not God. That's a true story. Okay? My point is that they are absolutely 100% positive that they are fine and there's nothing wrong with them. This is why we do not say don't drive drunk. We say don't drink and drive, period, end the story. If you're going to drink, fine. Do not drive. And remember that you have to go to work the next day and you can only do 0.02 an hour. So my recommendation to you is if you're going to drink or drink heavily, do not do it on the night before you have to come to work. Because I can't tell you how many people I've arrested early morning on their way into work, still deuce from the night before. Very bad thing that sometimes happens to good people. We had this happen to one of our drivers just a few months ago. He was involved in a very minor backing collision at the beginning of his shift. What's the first thing our drivers have to do? Those of you who don't know, they have to go take a BAT test. They have to go take a chemical test. They're required by DOT to do that. That's mandatory. He was a 0.14. Still deuce from the night before. And then he wanted to argue with Tim and I about whether or not he was under the influence. That couldn't have been. He had nothing to drink. Well, I believe he had nothing to drink, but he had a lot to drink the night before. You can only do 0.02 an hour. Very bad thing that sometimes happens to good people. Are we good? You understand? Okay. Can you be arrested for driving under the influence of something else besides alcohol? In 1998, I went to the most difficult school of my life. And they said, Brian, if you successfully graduate, you'll be a certified drug recognition expert. I said, what does that mean? They'll say, you'll be able to look at somebody, evaluate them, and tell if they are or were under the influence of a drug or combination of drugs and which ones they are. They were right. It was the hardest school I've ever gone to in my life. They were also right. I can evaluate somebody and tell if they are or were, and I've never been wrong. Now, this is really awesome when I was an officer and worked on the road. But this really, really stinks at a family barbecue. Yeah. Okay, I see stuff in people I know and love. I wish to God I didn't know. So let me ask you this. If you have shoulder surgery, what's the doctor going to give you? He's going to give you pain medication. That's right. All pain medication has one thing in common. It's called narcotic analgesics. Let me ask you another question. Would you take a vial of heroin, slam it in your arm, and get behind the wheel of a car? I hope not. Then why the heck would you take Norco, Vicodin, Percocet, Oxy? Why would you take any of those painkillers? They are all narcotic analgesics. They all have the exact same symptomology as heroin. Driving under the influence of prescription medication is just like driving under the influence of alcohol. It's all DUI. Okay? Very bad thing that sometimes happens to good people. Guys, if your prescription says do not drive or operate machinery, do not drive. When Rudy broke his neck, he didn't drive. Okay, you got to ride to and from work every single day. If that's you, if your prescription bottle says do not drive, talk to your manager, work something out, but do not get behind the wheel of a car because, folks, driving under the influence of prescription medications is just like driving under the influence of alcohol. It's the same thing. Very bad thing that sometimes happens to good people. Okay, are we good? Okay. I'm not going to go into illicit drugs too much because I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And I'm very, very happy to say that I am absolutely thrilled to death that 5 Star is a drug-free workplace. But I am going to go into something, and what I'm going to share with you is fact and truth. You can do with it whatever you want. But I am very, very, very concerned about the direction in which our country's going with our lackadaisical look on cannabis. What I'm going to share with you is facts. You can do with it whatever you want. Okay? I have to have this talk with the jurors every time I testify as an expert witness. And I've testified in both state and federal court. Okay? I've gone up against these higher liar doctors that will say anything for money. All right? Marijuana is a huge deal, and this is not the same weed that was smoked in the 60s. Okay? Back then, marijuana had a THC content of 2 to 3%. THC is tetrahydrocannabinol, so oil on the leaves makes you high. And I will concede to you, it was not a big deal. That high lasted maybe 20 minutes. It was a felony, but not as far as the high is concerned, not a big deal. Right now, if you smoke weed, you're looking at you're looking at THC between 33 and 36%. High that no longer lasts 20 minutes, highs that last 8 to 12 hours. Hours. But are people out there smoking it anymore? No. We can thank our friends in Colorado for showing everybody how to make their own concentrate. They're microscopically extracting every molecule of THC out of the plant. And they're making these dabs, and they're putting in the electronic cigarettes. They're putting it in their vaping pens. 90 to 100% THC. Guys, we're talking highs that last for days. I did evaluations on people who did concentrate. Their pupils are so blown, I can't even tell what color eyes they have. Their hearts are exploding out of their chest, 176 beats per minute. It makes methamphetamine and cocaine look like child's play. This is serious, serious stuff. And we have four more states this election cycle that is voting to legalize recreational use. If you don't believe me, look at what a train wreck Colorado has become in the last 8 years. Their DUI arrests have gone up exponentially. Their crashes have gone up exponentially. Their high school dropout rate, exponentially. Okay? This is serious, serious stuff. And you say, oh, but Brian, I need it for medicine. Let me tell you the truth about medicinal marijuana. There's exactly one scientifically validated study that says marijuana has a medicinal value. It was done in the early 2000s. It was funded by George Soros, and it says this: if you take the Marinol pill after chemotherapy with radiation, it helps with nauseousness. Marinol is a derivative of the hemp plant, has 0 THC. I have no issues with that. So what did the lawmakers do? They took that one scientifically validated study, they removed the word Marinol, replaced it with marijuana, and put a comma and said, or any other ailment as prescribed. There is zero scientifically validated studies that say that marijuana has any medicinal value by smoking it. Or, in fact, I'll show you 3 scientifically validated studies that says THC has no medicinal value. None. And causes psychosis and causes schizophrenia. So guys, if you know anybody who's going down that road, please try to steer them in the right direction, because we have a bunch of what I call low information voters. They don't know the truth. And I'm very, very happy to say that 5 Star is holding firm in being a drug-free workplace, because this is a serious, serious issue. Okay? All right, DUI, bad thing that sometimes happens to good people. And that's all I got to say about that. So why am I going around talking to all of our drivers? Why are you here today? Anybody who drives for work has the ability to put their company out of business. There is no ceiling on civil liability. One can ask for whatever they want. It's up to the judge and jury whether or not they get it. Guys, I have testified on numerous landmark cases that happened in California that have bankrupted corporations that are bigger, some the same size, some are smaller than 5 Star. And all it takes is one single crash. One single crash. You cannot predict the jury. So why do you need to listen to what I just told you? Because everybody in here has the ability, if you drive for work, you have the ability to put this company out of business. And I tell all of our drivers, if you see somebody acting unsafe, doing something unsafe, tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, you know what? My family really likes my paycheck. And we need to be our brother's keeper. If you see somebody doing something unsafe, ask them to be safe, because they could bankrupt our company. All right? And I could tell you case after case after case where that's happened. But in essence, that's why we do this talk. Now, I don't want you to leave here and be scared to drive. Okay? All you have to do is do those 5 things. Slow down, back off, maximize your elbow space, maintain your high visual horizon, And always check before you back. You will never be in a crash that's your fault, and you'll be able to perceive and predict 9 out of 10 crashes you would have been involved in that aren't your fault. Why do I care about preventability? Because just because you're not at fault for a crash, does that mean you're not going to get sued? No. Mr. Hoback will tell you that happens all the time. We're not even at fault, and we still get sued. Okay? When we look at these crashes, and that's what this Azuga camera system is so important, because it 99% of the time exonerates our drivers. Okay? It convicts them too, but but 99% of the time it exonerates them. All right? So listen to what I told you. All right? And you have nothing to worry about. Civil liability is huge. All right? So slow down, back off, maintain your elbow space. Look as far down the road as you can possibly do. Always check before you back. Always wear your seatbelt. I hope we're all good on that. Don't drive distracted. DUI is a bad thing that sometimes happens to good people. And do so because civil liability is important. All right, thank you very much.